high school in 1966 from Wahai. I was in the junior ROTC program, and basically all the way from probably time I was 10 years old, all I wanted to do was be a soldier. And so I enlisted. Well, my mom, dear mothers, I wanted to go in the Army right after graduation, but she talked me into going to college instead. And I've been accepted at the University of Hawaii, WSU, and the University of Christ Church in England. And I barely had enough money to get to WSU, so that's where I went. And my smallest class at that time had 500 people in it.
Oh my.
And you know, the upside was that the yearly tuition was $650.
Yeah.
And but I wasn't satisfied. It was too big. I didn't want to study, and I had a history professor that just really irked me. And at the end of one screed against America, he was wearing lederhosen. He's kind of a short, chubby guy, and he's wearing lederhosen with one of the hats with a kind of a pheasant feather in it. And I went down and talked to him, and I told him I thought he was a piece of crap, but as an instructor. And then he started, anyway, I smacked him in the face, knocked him over the desk, and I had a little bit of a temper back then. And I went to the registrar's office, got my money back, and Sandy, at that time, was my girlfriend. She came up with another one of her girlfriends, picked me up, came back up to Walla Walla, and I enlisted in the Army. And I actually went in September of 66. Went to basic at Fort Lewis, and that's where they did all the testing to see what you're going to do. And a lot of the tests they gave, most of them were multiple guess type questions. And a lot of them I had no idea what the answers were, so I was always told if you're in doubt, put letter C. So I did a lot of letter C's, and it kind of came back to bite me. But anyway, at the end of at the end of basic, I was selected to go to OCS, and I just filled out a paper saying all I wanted to do was infantry. So they gave you three choices. I put infantry, infantry, infantry. They sent me to Fort Sill to the artillery OCS. And I had no idea what a tangent or a cosine or any of that stuff, never even heard of it. Geometry is the highest I got in high school. And anyway, went through OCS, I graduated in September, and I was a 19-year-old second lieutenant.
Wow.
So where did they ship me for my first job? Back to Fort Lewis as an infantry platoon leader. And I spent like 8 months there, volunteered to go to jump school at Fort Benning. And during the jump phase, you have to do 5 jumps. And one of them has to be a simulated combat jump. Most jumps are at 15 or 5,000 feet. A simulated combat jump is at 500 feet. And we were using old Korean War airplanes, C-119s, and they had double doors, and you have to walk down the aisle. Well, you don't walk, you shuffle. And you have to go up a little step and then out the door. And because it was a simulated combat jump, you absolutely cannot stop. And the jump masters were, if you get tangled up, you're going out the door. And the guy in front of me stumbled and fell. I stumbled on him, and we got pushed out the door. And on the way down, our chutes got entangled, and we were coming down rather quick. And also we were spiraling as we were coming down. And just as we hit the ground, he's the one that he hit first, and I was on top of him, and he broke his neck and died. So that was my first kind of intimate check on kind of like a mortality check. And from there, I volunteered to go to Vietnam, so I went to all the jungle training schools, did all the other stuff like that. In Vietnam, my first combat assault, I stumbled and fell backwards and landed in a patch of prickly pear. Nobody had ever told me that there was cactus in Vietnam. And so if I wanted to, my first Purple Heart would have been a medic picking prickly pear spines out of my posterior, but that didn't happen. The area I worked in was in Central 2 Corps in Central Highlands, An Khe, Dak To, Pleiku, Bang San, in that area. So it went from the ocean and prickly pear to triple canopy jungle. And I spent most of my time from January of 1969 until November of 1969 in triple canopy jungle. I went from 180 pounds down to around 130. And at one time, during the monsoons, we couldn't get resupplied, and I went down to 116. I had some pictures at home of all that stuff. In the process, most of our contacts were very close. In the jungle, a long contact would be like 20 feet. Most of them were 10 feet or just hand-to-hand combat. And it's almost like a bar fight. You have like 8 or 10 or 12 guys going at each other. It may last a minute or 2 or 3, and then it's done for whatever reason. In the process of doing all that, I put in that time frame, I put in 230 combat assaults. Probably not quite half of those were hot LZs. In other words, when we came in, we were getting fired at. And one of those, we were coming in, and the pilot, both door gunners, crew chief, were shot. The co-pilot had been wounded, and so basically we crashed. And all the guys, I was sitting in the center console, or the center of the cockpit, and every person around me was shot. So I was the only one that was left. And we had other guys come in, we had other helicopters coming in, so we all got drug out and everything worked out okay. Well, for me anyway. And then the very next day, I had to leave. I was an artillery forward observer. And when I came into country, there were 16 forward observers in our group. And they had a high attrition rate. And they pulled me out of where I was, they sent me to another unit. As the helicopter was pulling out, we got shot down again. So I got shot down twice in 2 days.
Oh.
And this time, when we hit, in a Huey helicopter, when they hit on the rear skids, most people get lower back injury or pelvic injuries, and I got both. I got a lower back issue, and I cracked my pelvis, which wasn't diagnosed for 8 months. What they did is the company medics have what's called APCs. We call it grunt candy. It was aspirin, Percocet, and codeine. And we'd eat 17, 18, 19-year-old guys, because if you take a look at the Blue Mountains and you see the real steep canyons, put triple canopy jungle in that, and that's what we were climbing in, up, down, around, and through. And we were eating handfuls of that stuff just to get by. And that's what I lived. I basically lived on that for 8 months until that crack in the pelvis healed up. Then the next thing that kind of happened to me was that I was, we were going through a tunnel complex area, and I went down into a tunnel, and it collapsed, and I was down in there for, I don't know, half hour, 45 minutes, and they dug me out, and I was unconscious, and anyway, that was one of the closest times I ever came to dying. Because my gas mask was ripped, the tunnel was full of CS gas. They also used the tunnels to bury their dead. So I was surrounded by dead, rotting bodies. Anyway, and every time we had a combat assault, we usually had aircraft, usually Navy or Air Force, that supported us. And for some reason, I have no idea why, the Navy always seemed to, for us anyway, always seemed to come in on the wrong azimuth. And when they were shooting 20 millimeter cannon shells, and anyway, this cartridge, I'm going to pass this around. This is what the projectile exact weight and measurement. This is what hit a rice paddy and bounced up and hit me in the head and knocked me down. Did some other people too. So everywhere we went, it was danger. It just part of the job. And didn't feel like we're doing anything special. It was just, again, it was just really part of the job. During this process and this time frame, I was, as an FO, I was attached to a different battalion. It was a 2nd Battalion. And I was down with the company, and we were taking a break, and I was kneeling right next to a young sergeant, and we were talking, and all of a sudden I just got this really strange feeling, and a voice just said, "Move." And I stood up and moved, and as soon as I moved, a sniper shot the guy. And he was right, I was right in line with it. If I hadn't moved, it would have hit me in the head and got him in the neck. And he's buried at the entrance to the National Cemetery in San Francisco. On a lighter note, I brought these notes. We got some real good intel that a division pay officer for the NVA was going to be in our area, so they sent out small units to ambush certain trails. And the little tiny unit that I was with, we actually got the guy, and he was carrying $100,000 in a satchel, and he had $20, American money, French money, Vietnamese money, and at that time, a private was getting $87 a month and $55 a month jump pay. So I decided that because we got this guy, that I'd give each one of the 4 guys in the unit $100, and told them to be quiet, but how secrets are with people. One of them got drunk and started talking, and a couple days later I had a Army officer come down from Army Intelligence, and he was really ticked that I actually gave $400 out of $100,000, to American troops. Anyway, this is some money that I took out of the packet and sent to my dad, and you can actually take it out. It hasn't really been touched since then.
Yeah, this is, if you guys want to just pass it back this way and then back up front again.
So that was part of a NVA division pay packet. The other things that we had in, all this is going to be kind of out of sequence. It's not going to be, sequentially done. Because I was the artillery guy in the unit, and the company commander heard me talk about ogives, which is the sloping part of an artillery round. And he thought that was kind of a cool term. He said, so you're gonna be the guy that's gonna defuse all the booby traps we find.
Oh, man.
And so the only training I had was none. And I have pictures, at home of all the booby traps that I, took apart, and all the tripwires and all that stuff. So that's why I didn't weigh too much, because I sweated a lot. And I tell you, I prayed to God a lot
Yeah.
on that,
Thanks.
doing stuff like that. In fact, as I prayed to him twice a day, for sure, every day that I was there. The other thing, I brought, it's a piece of jewelry now, but it's something my brother made for me.
Not this brother.
My older brother's a silversmith and a goldsmith. And remember I said that most contacts were like 10 to 30 feet?
Yeah.
We were on a small patrol, there's about 9 of us. And this guy just stepped out from behind a bunch of brush, and he was carrying an SKS rifle, which is a semi-automatic rifle. And he shot the guy right behind me, killed him, shot the guy right in front of me, and then he shot me. And the 2 guys that he shot were both dead. And the reason I'm here is because somehow the powder in the cartridge didn't fully explode. So the bullet hit me, and I have a coin here that's bent, and that coin was in my pocket. And you can see the dent where the bullet hit the coin. So not only do I have this, but I have the guy's rifle, because a couple guys back shot him. And as he was falling down, the bayonet hit me in the leg. So not only did I get shot, I got stuck with the bayonet. So there's that. So
And by the way, the bullet that's on here is the bullet that hit the coin.
yeah. And amidst all these individual incidences, anytime there was a firefight or you're assaulting anything, there's hand grenades going off all over the place. So in the movies, they always show the people attacking after the hand grenades go off. But in reality, you have to actually go through the fragmentation, because once the hand grenade is off, then the fragmentation is gone, it's worthless. So almost all the guys I knew, and me too, had a lot of fragmentation wounds and scars. This is the watch that I carried in Vietnam. We never carried them on our wrist. We had them cinched on a buttonhole, and we had them hooked like this, and we could just pick it up and see what time it was. And in a firefight, I was leaning over trying to help a guy and couldn't help him, and I turned around to help another guy, and then the firefight ended. I mean, they're really quick, very vicious, very quick. And this isn't the wristband that I had. This is the replacement wristband. The wristband that was on there, and it was hanging right here, got shot right through. A bullet went this way, right through the band,
Oh, wow.
and cut the band. So you can see how thin that band is. After a while, things like this happen, and you just get absolutely numb to them. The one thing I didn't get numb to was bombs going off really close to me. Like I said, the Navy always seemed to come in on the wrong azimuth on gun runs. The Air Force always seemed to come in on the wrong azimuth on bombing runs. The Marine Corps seemed to be the absolute best. They were hands down the best support. But one time, we were in a more longer contact, and the Marine and the Air Force came in, and they were dropping 500-pound general purpose bombs. They didn't have smart bombs back then like they have now. And he came in the wrong azimuth, and a 500-pound bomb went off about 40 meters from me. And I had guys on each side of me, and I was down in a depression. And the guys on each side of me were both killed from the explosion. They didn't have a hole in their body, not one. But the overburden, the pressure from the bomb just turned them to jelly. And I was in this little depression, and I was, by the time they got me out, I didn't even know what was going on. I was bleeding out of my eyes, ears, mouth, everywhere. And anyway, so that's where I got a, now I forget, it's so bad I forgot what it was. Traumatic brain injury. Okay. The last thing I'd like to mention is that what finally got me after 19 months in the bush was that we were out on patrol, and we had a 17-year-old kid that was brand new, and he stepped on what was a Chinese knockoff of the German Bouncing Betty mine. But with the Germans, there was no way out of it. You're just gone. With the Chinese one, if you kept your foot pressed down tight, you could get another person to come back around, dig around the mine, and you could put a big, huge paper clip, and we used to carry them, and we could safety the mine. And when he stepped on it, I was just in the process of turning around and to help him, and his foot came off and blew him up and took out 3 or 4 other guys and me, and that ended my Vietnam experience. So at the age of 23, I was 100% disabled. I still stayed in the Army for another 5 years under a physical disability, and then I was medically discharged in 1976 at 28. And at that point, they had no ADA provisions. I couldn't get a job, I couldn't drive a taxi, couldn't get hired to do anything, so I went to school. I was finally ready to go back to school. But in all that time frame, and my experiences weren't, uncommon. There's other people that had a lot worse happen to them. I knew one guy that got shot down 5 times in one day. Okay, I knew another guy that I talked to him in the hospital. He had actually, by count, 5,225 holes in him. A mortar round landed right next to him, and he lived. And so, I mean, I'm not the sole person that had lots of close escapes, but I mean, there's a lot more that went on, but I'm running out of time, and I don't want to take your time or bore you. So, do you guys have any questions for me? Any general questions about Vietnam?
I have a couple to lead off with.
Sure.
One, what was the total number, or if you know, of combat patrols missions that you were on?
Over 300.
Over 300?
Yeah, and I was the sole survivor of one. Oh, I forgot that. I was 2 days before I was supposed to go to R&R and meet my wife in Hawaii. A guy got sick, and I took his place, and I was the sole survivor out of that patrol. And then 4 days after I came back from R&R, we went out on a patrol, and there's 2 of us left out of that.
So that was kind of my next question on how many of those 300 plus combat patrols were you either sole survivor or only you and one other person?
2.
At least 2.
Yeah. And
How many?
And then I would say that on better than 80%, we either had 50% casualties or more. And I mean, you can't, 1969 was the second highest, casualty rate in the war, Tet 68 being the most. But we're never in any big battles, but anytime you ever heard a term, small unit actions, which meant nothing much happened, that means that 8 or 9 or 10 guys were absolutely desperately fighting for their lives. And that, I went 65 days, and every day we had either 1 to 5 contacts just like that. It was endless.
Okay,
The attrition rate on our, a rifle company is supposed to have 144 men. I never went out with a rifle company that had more than 80. And after a week or 2 in the field, you were down to 60. And talking about being in the field, the longest I went without a bath was 93 days. Well, I mean, jungle piece just rotted off you. Anyway, go ahead, sorry.
I was gonna say, at that late, that many days out, the enemy could probably smell you.
Well, we could smell them too.
So how many helicopter crashes were you involved in?
I was in 2 crashes, and then I don't know how many other crashes I have, we pulled people out of.
And
lot.
you were sole survivor out of at least one of those crashes?
Hmm?
Were you sole survivor of at least one of those crashes?
Yes. The first one.
Did you, with all this stuff going on, did you qualify for Purple Heart?
Yes, but what happened is the company medic, not the platoon medic, but the company medics were the ones that filled out the paperwork to whether a guy was medevaced with a wound bad enough to go in. And our brigade, well, actually it was a Vietnam era wide. If you had 3 Purple Hearts, you were automatically taken out of the field. And I didn't want that. I just didn't want that.
How many Purple Hearts did you actually qualify for?
7. And the reason I didn't give them, the company medics I were with, they loved peaches and pound cake, which was real specialty stuff in sea rations. And because I didn't smoke or drink or didn't smoke, I either gave him my cigarettes or all my peaches and pound cake. And so for that, he didn't write me up. They just treated me in the field.
Okay, so, and just as before you start asking questions here, he used to come up from California, what, once a year for several years, and
Yeah.
we'd pick steel out of it that had worked its way to the surface.
Oh, my.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about memories from Vietnam. The one that's the most pleasant for me is that when I stand on the ground, I look up and I see all the contrails of the jets going by. This didn't happen in Vietnam, but I was in training to use it in Vietnam, but we didn't use it. Is that I exited aircraft that were 2,500 feet higher than those contrails.
Oh, my.
Mm.
So that was my, yeah, it was a good time.
So when did you actually go to Ranger School?
I went to Ranger School before I went to Vietnam, and to get selected for Ranger School, out of 100 applicants, they take 10, and out of those 10, 6 maybe pass the whole school. And in my Ranger class, we had one guy die of hypothermia, and another one was medically discharged because of pneumonia that went through in the wintertime.
And, okay, well, I think we'll just let it go at that. So any general questions, Dr. Newton?
How many hand-to-hand combat were you in?
6.
Don't anybody ask how many you won. Great.
You mentioned already once that you looked at it just like that's the job. What would you say your motivation was, or your fellow soldiers' motivation was, to keep going in that terrible circumstance you faced?
Well, you have to realize that, and I was with the 173rd Airborne Brigade, And to do that, you had to volunteer to jump school, and you had to volunteer to go to Vietnam. So I was with some highly, highly motivated people. The hardest thing we had to do was to keep the guys from charging ahead too fast
Oh,
to
my.
run into an ambush. It's hard to believe, like in boxing, you're supposed to lean into a punch. Well, in a firefight, the safest thing you can do is charge the guns
That's
and
right.
keep firing. The most unsafe thing to do is to back off and try to find cover. I mean, it doesn't sound right, but that's just the way it is.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yes, ma'am.
Donna?
Where did you go back to school and what degree did you get?
Well, before I went back to school, I did a couple of, I was a gold miner and I did a couple of other things. And then I had an uncle of mine that was a doctor, and he sat down and talked to me and said I had to get serious with my life. So I did a lot of, I spent 2 years in the hospital in the Army, and during that time I did a lot of end of course testing. And so instead of taking the whole course, I'd get the book, read the book, and I'd take the end of course test. So I did macroeconomics, I did French and German, and I did some other stuff. Anyway, after I got out of the Army and did that, I went back to a place called St. Martin's College
Oh, yeah,
in Lacey, Washington.
I know exactly where that is.
Yeah, I did 4 years with them. Then I did 2 years with Chapman University. I got 2 masters in psychology, and then I got a PhD in psychology, and then I got postdoctoral work in forensic psychology.
Excellent.
Praise the Lord.
Yeah. Any other questions? Yes, back there.
Were you able to sleep after this experience?
Well, they were able to
You
do
have
what?
nightmares or?
Sleep?
Any sleep problems, nightmare problems?
No, not as much as you see in some people. I had a very solid Christian upbringing, I had a very solid family. And I guess my personality type was that I didn't wallow in kind of what happened. But I did have some eccentricities that are still I'm much more comfortable sleeping on the floor, like on a futon, than I am a bed. Anyways, that's the sleeping issue. Now, if I couldn't sleep, I always got up and I either took a hot tub, a tub that had hot water in it, and a book. I lose myself in reading.
I'd like to make a comment, not to take a thing away from my brother, I would never do that, but how many veterans do we have in the crowd today? Yeah, yeah. And over here, yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
And me, yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Are we done? Oh, Becky?
Mike, can you remind us how you lost your eye? He tells grandchildren it was a rock
How I
fight.
lost my eye?
Yeah,
Rock bite.
Well,
He didn't lose it, they took it from him.
yeah, that's true.
the young man that stepped on the bouncing Betty, when it exploded, it basically disintegrated his lower body, and fragmentation from the landmine killed a couple of guys. Because I was just starting to turn around to look at him, part of his leg bone hit me right square in the eye, and that's how I lost my eye.
Marilyn?
Along with the, lack of sleep deprivation, do you have problems with PTSD?
No,
Praise the Lord.
not
It's
much.
wonderful.
Only sometimes. No, I haven't had any problems with that. I worked with people that have had problems like that, but
Did I see another hand over here? Becky again?
Well, yeah, I was just curious. any of this contribute to your desire to kind of go into the psych field?
Into what?
Into the psych field? Psych, yeah, thank you.
Yes, it did,
Yeah,
yeah. Uh-huh. I felt that I had to help people instead of, because I destroyed so many people in a short period of time, that I decided to go a totally different way.
I actually think the gold mining, mucking in rivers for a year or two was probably therapeutic.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time outdoors in beautiful country,
yes.
yeah. But I also spent some time in my uncle's private practice, and I didn't want to be a doctor. I thought I might be a lawyer. And we spent some time in a lawyer's office, and that was even worse.
Is that it? Anything else? Am I missing anybody? Okay, go ahead, Susie.
I know you jumped a lot, and you were talking about the jungles and the canopy. So how often was like defoliant used before you jumped, or for vision purposes, or?
What was the question?
Defoliant, how much was used? Did they use it?
Oh, Agent Orange?
Yes.
So you can see the
Okay,
joint?
Agent Orange, we worked, every area I worked in was covered in Agent Orange. All the water we drank, we slept in the dirt. We had, it was a company, it was a battalion policy that you had to have a running temperature of 103 for 3 solid days before you could be taken out of the field for treatment.
My goodness.
And we had guys that had boils, we had rashes, we had all that stuff, but we didn't know about it then. We had no idea what it was.
I saw it looking at it somewhere here. Okay,
Yeah.
yes, go ahead.
I just wanted to tell you, Mike, thank you for your service, and I love you, man.
Thank you.
You're
Thank you,
welcome.
thank you.
You're welcome.
He would say it was an honor and a privilege, but it wasn't a pleasure. All right, then, I would like to say, this is what we sometimes call war stories, but the point of it was to see how God's hand
Yes.
was in all of this.
Yes.
I mean, you cannot have these things happen to you or happen to people around you and not involve you and think, oh, I'm just a lucky guy. No, the word luck shouldn't enter into it at all.
Amen.
So God has been good to Mike all along, and we believe he'll continue to be good to him.
Amen.
And so we'd like to have all of you, if you would, just remember him, keep him in your prayers because we haven't mentioned it, but do you want to mention it, your diagnosis?
It's up to you if you want to.
Okay. Mike was diagnosed how long ago
September.
in September with acute myeloid leukemia, which probably is from the Agent Orange. He's actually had the squamous cell carcinoma taken off his tongue. He's got
Heart issues.
heart issues, lung issues, all Agent Orange caused. And some people like him are passing away 50, 55 years after the war, but due to this Agent Orange. So he was diagnosed with that, and his last bone marrow biopsy was not good. He's got a full-blown disease going on. They told him that with treatment he might live another 3 months. Without treatment, maybe a month. So you're at least a week into that.
Yeah.
So please, your prayers.
Amen.
Yes.
Amen.
Okay, is there going to be a closing song?
Yeah.
Is there a prayer, or is there a prayer before that?